Ill, survival horror from the first person, built on extreme realism and a deep physics system. For a long time, many people thought that this project did not exist at all, because each video looked so detailed that it was hard to believe. Now we know that he is real, because he is supported by Mundfish, the team behind Atomic Heart, so the resources are clearly there. The developers have created a system called real-time dismemberment. And I'll tell you friends, it's not just for the shocking effect. If you shoot a creature, the damage affects its movements naturally. Limbs break, weight shifts, and fights quickly become chaotic. Nothing seems pre-planned, which makes every meeting stressful. The team itself has experience in the field of visual effects, having participated in films such as Longlegs and the It prequels. And we can say that the design of the creatures is really scary, creating a very realistic body horror. We're not playing for some cool hero. There is no usual ammo counter in the game. You will have to check your weapon to see how many bullets are left, thus increasing the tension during the battle. If the final game matches what we've seen so far, Ill could easily set a new standard for how intense the survival horror genre can be.
Valor Mortis is an upcoming horror game with a heavy, realistic tone and a focus on slow, tense survival. It immediately catches your eye how gloomy everything looks. The places you pass through seem worn out and hostile. There is a constant feeling that nothing is on your side. The pace of the game is slow, especially in battles. You can't just swing your arms or rush forward. Every move counts, and the game makes it clear that careless play will cost you dearly. That alone creates a lot of tension because you're always thinking a few steps ahead. I like that the game doesn't try to scare you with loud noises. She keeps the silence and lets the atmosphere do its job. The pressure comes from feeling insecure, from the fact that you never feel completely comfortable anywhere you enter. It seems thoughtful, as if the developers know exactly what kind of horror they want to create and stick to it. If you like horror movies where there is more emphasis on atmosphere and careful elaboration than constant shocking moments, then Valor Mortis definitely deserves attention.
OD is a horror project led by Hideo Kojima, which is positioned more as an interactive experiment than as a regular game. From the very beginning, the tone of the game is strange, quiet, and disturbing. There's a simple moment with a thud echoing down an empty hallway, and it's weird enough to cause concern even before anything happens. The team was talking about exploring different types of fear, not sticking to one style. Imagine small segments, each of which plays with your nerves in its own way. All of this is powered by the Unreal Engine 5, and it seems to focus on mood, sound, and subtle tension rather than sudden scary moments or action. So far, there has been no detailed description of the gameplay. Most of what we saw was the atmosphere and hints of ideas. And to be honest, it is this mystery that plays a big role. People are intrigued because the game seems unpredictable, as if you don't quite know what form it will take when everything is fully revealed. If you follow Kojima's work, you already know that he likes to experiment with unusual concepts, and OD seems to follow this principle completely. It's still too early to draw conclusions, but this is definitely one of those projects that you should keep an eye on to see what it turns into.
Forward reconnaissance ship Cassiopeia. Our ship has taken massive structural damage.
Directive 8020 opens the second season of the Dark Pictures anthology and shows how Supermassive Games is changing the gameplay in these games. The Earth is on the verge of destruction, so a colonial ship named Cassiopeia goes to the island of TDF in search of a new home. After an emergency landing, things quickly go bad, and the crew discovers that they are being hunted by an alien life form. This creature can perfectly copy humans, and you're constantly questioning who's real and who's not. Most of the tension comes in those quiet moments when no one trusts anyone. The developers have slightly changed the gameplay. Instead of mostly watching cutscenes, you sneak around locations, hide from threats, and use tools to survive. You have a scanner to detect strange signals and a wedge tool that can open paths or give you a second chance when something gets too close. There was also a new turning points feature. If the choice turns out to be unsuccessful, you can go back to the key points and try again, or stay in survival mode where every mistake will remain. The game will be released on May 12, 2026 for Windows, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series XS platforms.
Still looking for a Caucasian woman, 30 years old, slim and blonde with blue eyes. She may be lost in the woods and is possible.
A story that spanned more than 10 years. In 2010, the Finnish studio Remedy presented to the world perhaps the only truly authentic game embodiment of Stephen King's work. Undoubtedly, it is exclusively spiritual, without direct adaptation, but accurate, lively, mysterious. He was not forgotten even without a sequel. The author of tabloid novels, mired in a creative crisis, Alan Wake goes to the quiet province of Bright Falls, where one mystery stands on the shoulders of a dozen others. What is written on paper comes to life, and the locals seem to have conspired to conceal something. This story left the players with more questions than answers, but it captivated with its atmosphere of the remote mountains of Washington, the romantic rocker soundtrack of the old gods of Asgard, and mysticism, which over the years only tightened its grip on the living. Remedy has been a long time coming for the return of its beloved hero. For the sake of the sequel, they had to save money to buy out the rights, look for a risky investor, and wait for the right moment. But they returned with even more fanfare than before. Stephen King was replaced by David Lynch, the mystery detective gave way to a psychedelic thriller, and narrative experiments finally went beyond the genre, approaching art house.
The cult horror about a foggy city teeming with monsters first of all became famous for its history. The main character receives a letter from his wife, who died several years ago. At her invitation, he goes to Silent Hill, hoping, against his better judgment, to see his beloved again. Everything external here is a reflection of the internal. Every nightmare you encounter is the personification of an inflamed subconscious, a reified symbolism that has taken on the most repulsive form. It was Silent Hill 2 that immortalized the franchise, turning the colorful horror into something more subtle and high, framed by the great music of Akira Yamaoka and the deep fears of Hiroyuki Iwakuni.
One of the main reasons for the frightening experience that Amnesia offers The Dark Descent is the inability to defend oneself. You will have to rely only on your dexterity and ingenuity, carefully avoiding dangers. This creates a constant feeling of vulnerability and helplessness before unknown threats, which only increases fear. Another important aspect of the intimidating atmosphere is the surroundings and architecture. Inside the abandoned castle where the events of the game take place, you will come across terrifying visions, gloomy rooms, and frightening sounds. You will hear moans, high-pitched screams, and footsteps that will make you feel like someone is always watching you. The scenery, sound effects, and lighting merge together, creating a suffocating and creepy environment. What can I say if the game has an invisible monster, Cairn, that lives exclusively in the water? It can only be detected by bursts and a characteristic sound, after which the player must run as fast as he can to avoid being overtaken by an invisible death. The overwhelming, frightening experience keeps you in suspense throughout the game. Due to the lack of defense, as well as the intimidating atmosphere and complex puzzles that often need to be solved in the short time before another monster catches up with the player, the first Amnesia skillfully conveys a sense of vulnerability and fear.
Where she went. I know why you're working in the
One of the few really great games in the Alien universe. As in the very first film, the xenomorph here is indestructible, the perfect predator. It usually appears according to its own patterns for each location, but often by chance. This means that it is hardly possible to learn his behavior. He'll hear everything, even the beep of the motion detector, and if the microphone is on, then so is your careless sneeze. If the xenomorph has noticed you, then this is definitely the end. But besides the xenomorph, there are androids in the game, a cheap copy of those produced by the Wayland Yutani Company, familiar from the films. Unlike the xenomorph, they can be killed,
But this is also not a simple matter. It is better to run away while they are slowly following you with the words, "Stop, I can help you." There are two layers to the plot in Alien Isolation. The first one is another attempt to catch a xenomorph, and the second is a corporate drama about the Sigson Company, which tried to keep up with Weyland-Yutani everywhere but failed. So there is also an interesting semantic load here.
SOMA doesn't scare you with monsters, even though they are very disgusting. And not by the depths of the ocean, even though the hero has to go down to the very bottom. SOMA creates fear in a different way. It's an existential horror. The game calls into question the importance of the human self, makes you think about what life and death are, and the conclusions are simply terrible. Any addition to this story will be a spoiler, and it's better to experience the events of SOMA yourself. Compared to other similar indie horror films, The Beast Inside skillfully uses screamers. The ghosts jump out of the darkness abruptly at the most unexpected moment. Moreover, they really like to do this when the player is in a defenseless position, moving through a dark, narrow space. These frightening moments do not get boring or irritating over time, as they are diluted with chase scenes, action, and stealth elements. Periodically, the degree of tension is reduced by the main storyline, in which there are much fewer stressful situations. Due to this contrast, the player will flinch even from the most banal screamers until the end of the game. Phasmophobia is one of the first games in the genre of cooperative horror. You can feel like a ghost hunter, demon hunter, and other paranormal creatures in it. The game allows you to fully feel yourself in the body of a paranormal hunter. The main task is to determine the type of entity by certain signs and get out of the location alive. The more ghosts and other paranormal activity players identify correctly, the more experience and money they will receive. Currency can be spent on buying equipment to make work more efficient and easier, and leveling up opens up new locations. The game also has a voice chat, with which by saying key phrases you can provoke the inhabitant of the location to contact the player. But remember, ghosts and demons will not sit still and wait to be identified. The more you make them angry, the more often they go hunting. The Little Nightmares series belongs to the platformer genre, which does not prevent it from including horror elements. The first part was released in 2017, and in it, the player will take on the role of a girl named Six. Her main task is to get out of a sinister place called the Womb, which is filled with monsters. The whole atmosphere of the game is saturated with the flur of childhood nightmares at their worst. A little girl in a yellow jumpsuit cannot resist the creatures inhabiting the womb, so she has no choice but to hide, look for workarounds, and, as a last resort, run away. Monsters, in turn, are like violent adults whose most disgusting qualities have been elevated to the absolute. Occasionally, the Sixth's journey will be overshadowed by terrible hunger, which can lead the girl to completely childish acts. The second part of the series was released in 2021 and continued the concept of the first. This time, the main character is a boy named Mono, who constantly wears a hat, and his partner will be the sixth one we already know. Now the children have to survive in the Pale City and get to the Black Tower, from which comes a signal that distorts the disgusting world of nothingness. Little Nightmares 2 has retained the atmosphere set by the first part. Little Nightmares 3 is also being prepared for release. It is scheduled to be released in 2024. It is known that there will be two main characters in it, who will have to get out of a place called Spiral, inhabited by creepy monsters.
Did you think that nothing would scare you after Little Nightmares? You're wrong. REANIMAL, from the creators of that very series, is a real nightmare that is deeper and scarier than anything they've done before. You are brother and sister, 2 little orphans stranded on a cursed island that was once home. My friends are gone, hope is fading, and all around a thick, suffocating atmosphere of horror. Huge shadows, ear-splitting silence, and creatures that make your blood run cold just looking at them. Slimy creatures made of human skin, spider-like monsters, ghostly children, and sea monsters ready to devour you alive. The game is in no hurry to scare you with cheap screamers. She is slowly suffocating with tension. Every rustle, every distant silhouette in the fog makes your heart beat faster. A beautiful cinematic picture only increases fear. You literally feel how small and helpless you are in front of this world. REANIMAL is a story about guilt, despair, and subtle hope in the very heart of hell. The co-op mode makes everything even scarier. Now the 2 of you are afraid for 2. If you like horror to get under your skin and leave a heavy aftertaste, this is your choice. Just don't play in the dark, and certainly not alone. Are you ready to go through real hell for salvation? Welcome to the island. He's already waiting for you.
If you think you've seen scary games before, forget it. VISAGE is a whole different level of horror. From the first step into this crazy old house, you will understand that you are not welcome here. Dark corridors, creaking floors, and a silence that weighs on my chest. The game is not in a hurry. It slowly penetrates my head, making me doubt my own eyes and ears. Every rustle, every distant moan, every reflection in the mirror may be the last thing you see. VISAGE scares not only with sudden jumps, it scares the atmosphere. Heavy, thick, stuffy. Realistic shadows, perfect sound, and the feeling that someone is constantly watching you. And when the nightmare finally unfolds, my heart is pounding like it wants to burst out of my chest. It's not just horror. It's a dark story about guilt, madness, and how reason can destroy a person from the inside out. The deeper you dive, the more you want to turn off the game, and the more you want to keep going. VISAGE is brutal, complex, and damn good. She stays with you long after you turn off the light. Are you ready to get really scared? Then come on in. Just don't say later that I didn't warn you. Sweet nightmares.